And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the Browns and them picking up another win against the Houston Texans. The Texans were without C.J. Stroud in this game. They really need to get him back. He's been out the last couple of games with a concussion. But yeah, the Browns winning 36-22 in this game. It was funny. They took out Joe Flacco and then they had to put him back in because the Texans were starting to make the game close. But yeah, they opened up the game with the 4-play, 59-yard drive. Flacco connected with Amari Cooper for 53 yards. Jerome Ford took a direct snap and took it into the end zone from 4 yards out. So that made it 7-0 Browns. Then both teams just punted the rest of the first quarter. Then the Browns, they went on a 3-play, 90-yard drive to make it 14-0. Flacco connecting with Amari Cooper for a 75-yard touchdown. So that made it 14-0. Then Dameon Pierce ran back a punt return, right? Yeah, he ran back a 98-yard punt return, I believe, or kickoff return. So that made it 14-7. The Browns actually were without Dustin Hopkins. He got hurt in this game, so they had no kicker. So they had to go for two. Flacco connected with David Njoku for a 21-yard touchdown, so that made it 20-7. And then they brought in DTR to run the 2-point conversion. He got it. Then Flacco threw a pick. Then Case Keenum threw a pick. Then Flacco threw another interception. So we had 3 straight interceptions, and that ended the first half. Then in the third quarter, the Texans punted. The Browns then went 18 plays, 94 yards, almost 10 minutes of time of possession down the field. And Flacco connected with Amari Cooper for a 7-yard touchdown, so that made it 28-7. Then Case Keenum threw another pick. Was it Case Keenum? Because then they switched to Davis Mills at one point. Yeah, so Case Keenum threw a pick. Browns got another touchdown out of that. Kareem Hunt from 1 yard out. And then Flacco connected with Amari Cooper for the 2-point conversion. So that made it 36-7. And then the Texans, they got a couple of touchdowns in this fourth quarter. Davis Mills connected with Nico Collins for a 5-yard touchdown. Then they got another touchdown. He connected with Beck for a 1-yard touchdown. So 36-22 ended up being the final score. And then the numbers for the game: Joe Flacco went 27-42 for 368 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Browns only ran the ball for 54 yards. Jerome Ford had a touchdown, obviously. Kareem Hunt as well. Amari Cooper, great game. 11 receptions, 265 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So if you started him in fantasy, good for you. If you didn't, that's unfortunate. And then David Njoku, he had 6 receptions for 44 yards and a touchdown. Again, he's had a nice rapport with Joe Flacco since Flacco stepped in to be the quarterback. So those are the Browns numbers. Then for the Texans, rough day for Case Keenum, 11 for 17, 62 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Davis Mills came in relief, 15-32, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Devin Singletary was their leading rusher with 44 yards. Dalton Schultz was their leading receiver, 8 receptions for 61 yards. Noah Brown had 3 for 38. Nico Collins had 4 for 18 and a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, the Texans, they really miss C.J. Stroud. So hopefully they can get him back because, the Texans, they still got a chance to make the playoffs. Now, I agree that the Texans are doing the right thing by not rushing him back because this is their young quarterback. This is their future, and they don't want to rush him back and he ends up, getting, seriously hurt, getting hurt even more, and then who knows. But hopefully he's back this week because I like the Texans to make the playoffs out of the teams that are fighting for it. It's going to come down to probably them and the Colts. That last game of the regular season. Now in week 17 they have the Titans coming up at home. So if they can get Stroud back, I think they could win that game, and then you go into Indianapolis and you see what happens. Because the Colts got the Raiders, and the Raiders, they still got a chance of making the playoffs too. So I think there's like 24 teams that are still alive. I could be wrong; it might have went down, but yeah, there's 24 teams I think left, at making the playoffs. So, listen, these last 2 weeks are going to be insane. So we'll see how that goes. But as for the Browns, I mean, they continue to roll. And I think if they win against the Jets, like, they clinch a playoff spot. So, and the Jets are going to have to start Trevor Siemian again. And listen, if it wasn't for the Commanders, basically giving the Jets the game in the beginning until they took out Sam Howell and put in Jacoby Brissett, who knows how that game goes. The Browns are not going to do what the Commanders did. The Jets are going to have to, keep up with, what the Browns are doing. And listen, I think the Browns, they're going to win on Thursday. They're going to win tomorrow night, and they're going to be in. And we'll see what happens with Joe Flacco making the playoffs again. I'm curious to see how that all plays out because, Flacco looked like he was basically done, with the Jets. And then he steps in for the Browns, and he's looked good. Now, the issue is the interceptions. He's thrown a lot of picks. But the Browns are still able to win because of it. It really, they came back against the Bears. They were basically in control of this game, until the Texans started coming back. So they had to put Flacco back in, supposedly. But I did not think the Texans were gonna, mount a comeback, especially with what's going on with their quarterback situation and there being no C.J. Stroud. So, I'm curious to see, how the Browns are going to look in the playoffs. It's unfortunate that they don't have Nick Chubb again because they really didn't run the ball in this game, but I mean they didn't have to because Amari Cooper just exploded for over 260 yards in this game, or right 240. It was like what was it 245? Right, 245 was the amount of receiving yards. I mean I just looked at it. Oh no, yeah, 265. Yeah, no, so I was right the first time. But he's in a good. He's in a good situation. He's got a nice connection with David Njoku. Him and Amari Cooper. I mean, they had a great game. He's in a good situation, and that's why with the Jets. I mean, it was bad. He looked like he couldn't play at all. But now he's in a good situation. You got good weapons. You got a decent head coach, I would say. A good offensive line. Running game, is okay. Obviously, if Nick Chubb was there, I mean, they'd be even better, the Browns. But, that's not the case at the moment. Well, until next year. I did see something that said, what does this mean for Flacco for next year? I mean, I don't know. I thought he did come out and say that again, I saw it on TikTok, so it's probably not true. But I thought it said, I thought he did say that he was pretty much done once, this year was over. But we'll see. I mean, maybe he feels like, I could be a backup for a team, or stay with the Browns and be the backup for them. I don't see why not, because he's still got that strong arm. I mean, we saw it on full display. Those passes to Amari Cooper. But I mean, as long as he's in a good situation, like if you go back to the Jets with their offensive line issues and and their coaching staff, you're not going to have the same success. Even though the Jets are bringing back everybody for Aaron Rodgers, the Jets have their issues, their offensive line. They got to fix that, because if you don't fix that, Rodgers is going to get hurt again, and then you're going to be back to square one. So, but yeah, I mean, credit to what the Browns have been able to do, really. I mean, because once Deshaun Watson went down, it pretty much looked like that was the end for them. But they've been able to keep it together, and now they're 10-5, and they're, on the doorstep of making the playoffs once again. And listen, you look at the AFC. I mean, they could beat anybody. I think they could go on the road and beat the Ravens. I mean, they did it already this year. Now, it's going to be different because you got Deshaun Watson. You don't have Deshaun Watson. Now it's Joe Flacco. So, and that defense, we saw what they did to Brock Purdy. Joe Flacco, Brock Purdy can move around a little bit, but he's not like, Josh Allen or Mahomes. But now you got Joe Flacco, who's just a pocket passer. I mean, and Flacco's been throwing interceptions. The Ravens can take advantage of that. But again, that's a division rival. These teams know each other well. I think the Browns could give a lot of teams problems in the playoffs. I really do. Again, it's going to be tough. Like, if they got to go play Miami, in Miami, it's going to be tough, having to deal with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and all those track stars, in the running game too with Mostert and Achane. But I give him a good shot. I definitely think, even with Flacco, like they could beat anybody. It's just they got to limit the turnovers because, again, that's the issue. But, I mean, I really hope we get to see Flacco play against the Ravens in Baltimore because that would be insane. That would be insane. We see him go back to Baltimore. We might see Stafford going back to Detroit. That would be fun. I mean, these playoffs are going to be a lot of fun because you really just have no idea like who's going to win. I think most people think right now it's still going to be Ravens 49ers. I mean, those are the two best teams. But for everybody else, I mean, this wild card round coming up in a few weeks, it's going to be insane because you really just have no idea. Anything can happen. But I like the Browns going into the postseason. But we'll see how they perform. Because they're going to be going on the road. It's going to be tough, but listen, I think they got the team to again, they're going to give teams problems. I mean, if they got to go on the road and play, Kansas City maybe, or Jacksonville. I mean, I think they could beat both of those teams. I mean, they beat Jacksonville. I mean, look at how the Chiefs are playing. I think right now anybody could go into Arrowhead and in these playoffs and maybe beat the Chiefs because we might be seeing the Bills go there. So, I mean, I would probably still take the Chiefs over the Browns just because I don't know if I'd be able to pick against the Chiefs, but the Browns could definitely go in there and win. They almost did last time. But obviously, Mahomes got hurt in that game, and that was a different Chiefs team at the time. Now the Chiefs look like a very different team. But I think it's just one of those years that, and they'll figure it out. I don't think this is something that you got to worry about long term. I mean, it's not like Patrick Mahomes is just going to fall off and, not be what he was, prior to this year. They're going to figure it out. But it's just one of those years. It's tough to maintain the amount of success. Like, look at the Patriots, what they were able to do for years. It's tough to do that. I mean, the Chiefs are still going to be in the playoffs. It's just they might be one and done. But, yeah, with the Browns, though, we'll see what they could do. But I love the Joe Flacco story. That's a story I could get behind. I just, with Tommy Cutlets, I just saw that, I wasn't, my friend just said that it looks like Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter. So, the Tommy Cutlets era is over. It looks like, at least, for this year. I mean, he could be the backup, but the Joe Flacco story is a story that I can get behind because that's with the team that's actually going somewhere. With the Giants, I mean, people are like, oh, they can make the playoffs if they win out. They're not winning out. And look what happened. They've lost their last 2 games. Probably not winning another game this year. So, but yeah, the Browns, they win and they're in. So, with that being said, we're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and them winning big over the Jacksonville Jaguars 30-12, and they are in prime position to win the NFC South. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.